We'll see how you're feeling after the Caps. Rock the red. I should be careful. I say that, then Montreal wins, and then that ends up on the internet. See, that's how that happens. Kings lose at home to the Mavs, as you heard Klay Thompson say it, exercise some demons, and he certainly did. Exactly 1 year ago, Warriors-Kings, Klay Thompson, 0 for 10 from the floor, 0 for 6 from 3, and the Warriors got debacle. Game to forget. Back to that critical second 12 minutes. Boy, you get one that rattles home like that, and that lights the fuse, and Klay doesn't need a whole lot of space to get cooking. Buries another 3. Klay off a screen, up quickly. That's cash. And he didn't miss from the floor or from 3 in the second quarter, and the Kings had a 23-point halftime lead. Beautiful bounce pass from Brandon Williams to Klay cutting, and then Klay again. 8 of 11, 5 of 7 from 3, 23. And his coach raving about the vet's shooting performance.
He got going. Being able to set screens with AD and him, and then also I thought the relationship between Klay and D-Live was at a high. They were channel 2-ing him, and so he was being able to get the ball to D-Live, and I thought D-Live did a great job of playmaking. He didn't look to, he was unselfish. He didn't look to score. He looked weak and got guys wide open shots.
Joined now by a guy that knows that Klay shooting performance well. It's Bob Myers. And Bob, the Dallas situation, the lens that we're looking at it through is clearly what Nico Harrison did in trading Luka. I think everybody understands that. You've been in that chair. You know what it's like to have to make big-time decisions. Nothing quite like that. But I'm asking you just, what's a reasonable way to view where Dallas currently is and what has to happen? Like, they won tonight? Like, they ought to get in? Like, how do we view it? How much runway do we give the man before we start saying this was just a catastrophic disaster?
Well, I don't know what you're saying. People are already doing that, Scott. I mean, whether it's fair or not, the catastrophic disaster strategy has been pounding this Dallas organization since this trade happened. I mean, to the tune of people not believing it from the start. So the real thing is, if you're asking how should they be evaluated, well, this guy is taking a lot of the heat, a lot of the brunt. And you said it. When you sit in that job, that's what you sign up for. The thing that I think is interesting is that this is actually hard to watch. I mean, this is more. I think this is somewhat unprecedented. I don't know, Scott. You've been in sports a long time. Have you ever seen this kind of vitriol for a general manager? Have you seen this before?
Not at that level. And then, you know, I get it. He has the press conference and then double downs and defense wins championships. 44-point second quarters win games, not championships. And I'm not excusing what he did. I mean, look, he's a grown man. He made the decision. He'll live with it. I'm just asking you as a guy who's been in this position, like, what's the amount of runway that it is a reasonable amount of runway to provide to say, you know what, this was – not that it worked or didn't work, but like, where are we from your perspective?
Yeah. So look, you're allowed to do what you're allowed to trade whoever you want. That's one of the hard and great parts of the job. A coach coaches the players in front of him. A GM can trade a star. He can trade 5 draft picks. He can trade a role player. He can trade whatever he wants. There's no boundaries. Things like this are very rare. So when I look at this trade, Scott, and I evaluate it, you say, okay, how do we evaluate this specific trade? Well, when you trade a player of this magnitude, what I would say is if we were playing poker, Scott, and I wanted to go all in, I would leave myself as many outs as I could. So when you traded Luka Doncic, what Nico did was he traded for a great player. Anthony Davis is a great player, and Max Christie's a good player. And that first-round pick, who knows? I think where you get stuck and where people have been critical is not the fact that you traded Luka Doncic. And by the way, people are critical of that by itself. But when you look at the return, that's where people really get upset, and a lot of the Mavs fans have a hard time, because if I'm going to trade a player that good and in his prime, which, again, is very, very rare, I'm going to say I'm going to give myself an avenue to win now, which I think they do have an avenue to win now, Scott. With Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, there is an avenue. What they didn't do was give themselves an avenue via multiple first-round picks, things like that, for the future. In the event that Kyrie and Anthony Davis and this team doesn't work, then you can really evaluate this, because you can say, we traded Luka Doncic, we had a 2-year window to prove that it was right, and it didn't work. Whereas I think, and I think a lot of the league thought, and again, I don't know for sure if I'm right, but you would hope that when you trade a player of that magnitude, you say, I've got a chance for it to work now, but I've got 3 or 4 first-round picks or young players that if it doesn't, I'm covered for the future. And I think that's where that organization put themselves in a little bit of a corner by saying, you're asking, what is success here? What does success look like?
Essentially,
this is a team coming off the finals, Scott. This is a team coming off the finals.
I want to be clear here. I think I did a real poor job of framing this. I'm not saying it makes any sense to me, because it doesn't, Bob. I'm just saying in the short term to just ask sort of, what is there a way to say, hold on now, actually, here's where maybe this makes sense.
You have to come in ready to go.
An elimination game, it brings out the best in any athlete.
I'm going to go in with the mindset of just trying to run them out the gym.
We try to make sure that we're coming out here playing with life and energy. You know, it's a do or die situation.
You got to be prepared. You got to be ready. It's going to be hell.
Welcome back to NBA Countdown, presented by Hennessy.
Tonight holds high stakes for two teams that both shook up their rosters by trading their franchise stars this season. Sacramento acquired Zach LaVine, who's averaged just over 22 points, 51% shooting with the Kings, while Anthony Davis played in only 9 games since joining the Mavericks and averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds. Now, the Mavericks, they have been asked continuously to explain the logic behind this shocking trade with Luka Doncic, and they're clearly feeling that heat, because yesterday, GM Nico Harrison, he held a closed-door meeting with reporters, no cameras allowed, and he said this: there are no regrets on the trade. Part of my job is to do the best thing for the Mavericks, not only today, but also in the future. And some of the decisions I'm going to make are going to be unpopular. That's my job, and I have to stand by it. Now, elsewhere in the course of this conversation, he also emphasized repeatedly the importance of defense. He said, quote, our philosophy, like I said, going forward is defense wins championships, and we're built on defense. And this trade cements us for that. Our senior insider, Shams Charania, is joining us for context in this conversation. But, Bob, you spent over a decade in the front office as a general manager with the Golden State Warriors. Did you hold any meetings like this? Well, what did you make of this?
We had problems. We didn't. It wasn't all perfect. And, you know, every team's got issues, right? They all do. And especially if you look closely, and we never scrutinize teams more than we do now. But owning an NBA team is a private business. But it's not private. It's public. Stephen A. makes a career out of commenting on how teams are run. And that's fine. Fans show up and boo and cheer. So it's as public of a private business as you can have. So when things are difficult, Malika, you have to face the music, right? So what Nico said, I'm fine with what he said. Again, I've talked about how I feel about the trade. I feel like they didn't leave themselves many outs. He said we got to win, but it's poker, and he's playing for an inside straight. He doesn't have 5 outs to convince his fans that this works. But for you, what I don't understand, and again, people scrutinize this trade and have opinions of it. Why did they do this closed door? I don't think that really sat well with anybody. Forget about, you know, the local fan, but anybody. It didn't go over very well.
So, Bob, my understanding is Nico Harrison did not want to do this closed-door round table. This was not his idea. This was something that was enforced by their owner, Patrick Dumont.
Really? And so, well, again, I mean, it's hard to run these things. It is hard to run these things. But in a situation like that, you know, I think they were trying to repair some things. It felt like that, but it felt like some of the comments didn't land.
Sometimes less is better. Sometimes less is better. You know, probably already said enough.
What does it tell you, though, that the owner is essentially enforcing this onto the GM?
Well, again, I don't owning a team, you get to do what you want to do, Sean. You get to do what you want to do. But this, I guess I would, anybody in the organization, the Mavericks organization, I don't think they could foresee this. Right. And maybe it's because Kyrie got hurt. Maybe it's because Anthony Davis didn't play right away. They referenced the 2.5 quarters that showed what they could do. But I think what they're doing now is we got to respond to this.
You can do what you want to do as an owner. You can also be called stupid for doing it. And that's exactly what I'm calling Dallas Mavs ownership. Stupid for doing what they did. We live in an age where the podcast world is proliferated. It's taken on a life of its own. The media is people who ain't even in the media, okay? I mean, they're all, because we're all lumped in the same bowl. You got stuff going on, comments out the wazoo, and you think it was wise to mandate that your general manager have a meeting and no cameras allowed? Really? Like, that getting out was going to help you as an organization. It's bad enough you let go of a superstar that's 6 years younger than the guy that you were getting in return. It's bad enough that you didn't get any other assets to go along with him. I understand the Max Christie. I understand, you know, you swapping the first-round picks, all of this stuff. You didn't get enough. When Knicks look at Mikal Bridges and everybody looks at that trade and you gave up 5 picks, 4 unprotected first-round picks to get Mikal Bridges, but the Lakers didn't have to do a quarter of that to get Luka Doncic, and y'all have nosedived since, primarily due to injuries, of course, and your response is before a play-in game. Season ain't over. Ain't exit interviews much. There's still a play-in game that they're playing tonight. And before that game, you're going to sit up there and mandate that your general manager has a meeting with the media. By the way, the media, don't bring your cameras, even though that's a part of your, that's one of the tools you use in media. I don't know if you know that, but it is, media people come with cameras. They come with microphones. He said, don't bring them. This is the dumbest, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard a franchise suggest. And Nico Harrison ultimately looks bad because he goes out there and what does he say? What does he say? We actually looked good when we were on the court together for 2.5 quarters. 2.5 quarters? 2.5 quarters. Now, we all love, if you know Nico, you got love for him, okay? I've known Nico for years. I have never, ever heard him say something that idiotic. Ever. We really looked good for 2.5 quarters. You didn't even say a game. 2.5 quarters? You can't do that. But they did it because that's what's going on in Dallas right now. And oh, by the way, your owner was Mark Cuban, who was a bit wild, to say the least. But one thing we never associated with him was stupidity. This is a first. Congratulations.
I'll tell you what has to happen. Trust is hard to build with a fan base. They had it, right? Because they had trust. It's hard, but now you lost it. Like any relationship. The relationship with your fans has been lost.
Oh, worse. They actually took credit away from the Cowboys.
Well, before we go too far down that road.
They did.
You had to do it. You had to do it.
It's the off-season.
Had to do it.
Cowboys.
Not having any sort of out, to your point, though, saying that we looked like a championship team for only 2.5 quarters, to your point, Stephen A. There's nothing that was said here that helped pacify a very, very angry fan base. They want to see a healthy roster on the floor before they're even going to be able, before anyone's even going to be able to need to evaluate what this team even is, Shams.
Kyrie Irving's return, that's the big question now, and that's something, the expectation around the Dallas Mavericks, Kyrie Irving, is that he will play a good chunk of next season. And there's optimism that he will be back for the Mavericks by January. And he's got, before that, a $44 million player option. That's the next situation that Nico Harrison, the Mavericks, will have to deal with. And the goal for the Mavericks has been to rip up his player option and give him a 3-year deal, potentially, to align him with Nico Harrison's 3 years and Anthony Davis's 3 years. Before his injury, he was playing at an all-star level, an all-NBA caliber level, Stephen A. And with this team, say whatever you want about the Luka Doncic trade, and obviously there's a lot of feelings on that. This is a really this is a competitive and talented team.
Let me be very, very
when
clear.
they're on the court.
Let me be very clear. If Kyrie's healthy, Gafford, Lively,
so think about
Anthony
that
Davis,
team next
that's a
year with a healthy
contender.
Kyrie Irving.
But having said all of that, let's be clear. Anthony Davis got a game tonight. Luka shows up and drops 45. That game you had 13. You can't look like that. You got to embrace this, Anthony Davis. You got to embrace this. I don't care if everybody else sticks up the joint. That